This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, everybody, it's Carm Capriato. How are you? So glad to have you here. Another remarkable Results Radio Town Hall Academy. I got a great panel. We're going to talk about leadership today. Please don't turn this off. I've heard enough about leadership. This is really going to be an exceptional episode. I have three great people, peers from the industry, your peers from the industry, that really count leadership as one of the great assets that they have to lead great companies. But before we get started, for over 30 years, NapaTrax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the best, most comprehensive SMS in the industry, and will prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. Find NapaTrax on the web at NapaTracs.com. And AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching will help you shift your gears and redefine success. Imagine your business not just meeting, but exceeding every goal. Talk to my friend Chris Cotton at AutoShopCoaching.com. And ready to optimize training with today's class? Roll out a training plan for your automotive shop. In just 5 minutes daily, boost knowledge, retention, and improve team performance. Start seeing results today. Join your peers at today'sclass.com. Tracy and I are going to ASTA, AstaExpo.com, sponsored by NapaTrax, September 26th through the 28th, 2024. I hope to see you there. I'm doing a training class along with Tracy. It's going to be a blast, my first time. Okay, we're talking about leadership. Andrew Marcotte's with us, American Pride Automotive. Soon to be 6 shops, right, Andrew?
Yes, sir. 6th one opening next month.
Next month in the Maryland area. Jon Klusterman, Director of Ops at West Side Service, Zeeland, Michigan. 6 shops now. Hey, Jon.
Carm, thanks for having me back.
Wow. Okay, 5, 6, that's 11. Now let me see if we can top over 20. David Asquith, Managing Director, AutoStream Car Care, Baltimore. 10 locations.
Hey, Carm. Hey, guys.
We got a hell of a group of multi-shop operators. And I guess, guys, you don't need to be an MSO to be a great leader. I know so many great leaders that have one location and they're on top of their craft, on top of their game. They own the market. And it's really because of leadership that bequests the great culture in their business. And we're here to talk about leadership. Andrew brought this to me. Andrew had a chance to read an article in a magazine and it inspired him to say, hey, let's bring on my buds and let's talk about leadership. Andrew?
Yeah, Carm, I don't think that leadership is something that we can stress enough as far as the impact that it can have, not only in our own, smaller spheres of influence when we look at our own companies and our own lives, but how the trickle effect of the impact that you're able to have and the impact that the people you influence have on the people they influence and where it cascades from there. We talk a lot about leadership within American Pride. I know David and Jon are in the same boat as well. And anything that we can do to emphasize this, I guess, maybe spark some interest in somebody, maybe dig a little deeper and work on their own leadership styles. I don't think there's very many things that can have a larger impact on somebody personally or professionally. The article, I guess, what kind of got us going back and forth on this was kind of archetypical leadership styles, blind spots. How do you overcome these blind spots? Stuff along those lines. We sent some talking points back and forth, came up with a few things here. The 5 main leadership archetypes that we had kind of discussed were the motivator, the builder, Mr. or Mrs. Accountability, the example, and then servant leadership as well. With the motivator, these are kind of the lead from the front, kind of people that are more of the rah-rah style leadership. The builder are people that like to build things, build teams, build processes, stuff along those lines, and they lead more in that, more in a strategic sense, I guess you could say. Accountability, obviously do that through holding themselves and others accountable. Leading by example, we go from there, and that's obviously modeling the way, wanting to, do as I do as I say, and backing that up as well, not having the hypocrisy that goes along with that. And then servant leadership of being, whatever your team needs and being there to serve and to lead by serving, building credibility, and then having people ultimately, you have a tremendous amount of leadership capital when you leverage this style of leadership. So why don't we just hop straight into the motivator aspect?
Let me just say something to the audience, because we cover this a lot. We have been dishing out great insights and a lot of wisdom for 9.5 years, and we cover this a lot. Quotes from John Maxwell's books, all these great leadership books that are out there. Leadership is something that you can learn and engage yourself in and commit to it. like culture, it's one of those things that is so hard to touch, and so much of our industry is in a position where this is very uncomfortable for them. So as you're listening to this team, get uncomfortable. And I think if you get it and you learn it and you say at the end of this thing, I can do this, then it's all worthwhile to hang in there and listen to this entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've talked about a lot in our organization this past year, and the fact that you can be given the title as a manager, which gives you the ability to direct your organization, but leadership is earned. Leadership is earned by getting a group of people to follow you, and that's not something that is just handed over in the basis of a title. You have to earn that using these archetypes that we have here. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you use one specifically. It could be multiples. It just depends on what the personnel that you're trying to lead, how they receive different styles. At the end of the day, it's about impact, and how are the people that you're trying to effectively get to follow you, how do they best learn? How do they best engage in what you're trying to deliver to them in the form of a message?
Yeah, so along Jon's lines there, I was doing some thinking on that when talking to him ahead of this, I guess, on switching between these different styles of leadership and stuff like that. And certainly wholeheartedly agree. We all have dominant styles. We all have some that we probably try to avoid because we're not as confident in our ability to lead in that way. Figuring out which style to leverage or which approach to take, I guess, is vitally important when you're leading at a high level, because ultimately, to Jon's impact, what matters is impact. So starting with the end in mind and figuring out ultimately what do I want to see following this conversation, this process rollout, whenever we're flexing our leadership capital, what do I want to see on the other side, and kind of taking the strategic approach of game planning that conversation or whatever it is in a way that yields you that impact that you're trying to have. I've got a saying that we use pretty often within the company when it comes to leadership, more on how do we be everything that our teams need us to be. And what we use is we use an analogy that we call it, we have to play chess, not checkers. And I had a friend of mine who said this to me 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And what that means, just to break it down, is that in checkers, every piece moves the exact same way. You move forward, you can jump to the side. When you're a king, you get a few new skills, but there's not a lot of strategy in each individual piece there. On the chess side, every piece moves completely individually. Pawns move one way, rooks move others, knights move separately than that. And we've got to look at ourselves as playing a game of chess and taking an individualized approach to leadership and what we're delivering to the people we influence in order to make sure that we're giving them what they need in order to make the changes that we need to see in them, or to reiterate the good, the good qualities that they express as well.
I just can't help but think of DISC. I just can't help it, because it seems like the leadership styles that you've described have a lot to do with your communication tendencies. And if you know yours, and this is how you approach leadership, if you're going to be a steamroller with that, it's not going to work, because you need to learn how to lead and communicate with people who aren't like you. So you need to learn what each individual's way, I like to call DISC a communication style, not a personality thing. This is how I like to get my point across to people. I'm a customer service person. I'm this accountability person. I'm an accountant. I'm an extrovert, or I demand excellence. And that could be, your dominant person. Have you guys ever gone through that kind of assessments with yourself and your people so that as a leader, you know best how to engage the chess pieces?
I love where the topic is going. And one of the things that I was thinking about was intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. The extrinsic motivation is the external factors that we can create as the motivating leader that can help somebody get to their potential. And then there's the intrinsic motivational factors that what is the person saying when they're talking to themselves? What's causing them to move? And so when you're alluding to personality profile tests like the DISC test, things like that, understanding what moves your people and how to press those buttons and help them more internally. Why do they want to press the buttons? Why do they want to make change? Our job as leaders to motivate is to invoke change. We're here to disrupt. We're here to make sure to get them comfortable with the uncomfortable. So at the end of the day, if we have someone who's introverted, who's not really focused on driving anything out passive, coming in every day, just collecting a paycheck, then how do we help that person reach their full potential? And that's going to come down to the hey, what drives this person? Goal posters, things along those lines. What actually gets them out of bed every day to come in and fulfill the promise to be the very best that they can be? And if we can tie into that, whether it is through personality profile tests, the goal posters, one-on-one conversations, lots of emotional intelligence discussions, things outside of business, that will help us be more effective leaders and help them find their internal motivation. One thing that I've found in multiple surveys, studies, things that I've done personally, studied myself, is there's a limit to what I can do extrinsically to motivate you. That has to come from the internal mechanisms. Helping them tap into that is the key to the motivation.
Obviously want to echo that as well. What it comes down to is if you're trying to use an ineffective means to motivate, you're not going to be successful. You've got the traditional things, everybody immediately jumps to money. A million different pay plans in this industry. There tends to be a pay for performance aspect in the majority of them. Immediately you think what keeps people happy is earning potential. But we've also got, in our company at least, we've got a couple single parents that work there that what matters to them could be schedule flexibility or the ability to have additional paid time off or the ability to take time off unpaid for planned things so they can be there for the families. And if you try to motivate somebody whose primary focus isn't money by throwing more money at them, you're not going to have the impact that you want to see. So identifying what motivates each individual player on your team is crucial to leading effectively.
There was a Harvard Business Review that wrote an article that said only 2% of financial overlaps with job satisfaction. And when you think about only 2% of it being money motivator overlapping with job satisfaction, somebody is not necessarily coming into work because of the paycheck. They're coming into work because of the things that Andrew's alluding to. Our job is to find out what are those things.
And I bet on the flip side, as we're making personnel decisions or leadership decisions that we probably, I'll put it out, we'll play a game. What percentage do you think does money factor in from a leadership standpoint when trying to motivate somebody? I bet it comes up in a minimum of 50%. To say there's a huge gap as far as using that as a motivator, I think would be an understatement.
I find the link to this whole entire last 5 to 8 minutes of discussion, the communication word. And if you're not listening or asking great questions, using your intuition while you're managing by walking around, you're going to miss the things that are important to your team and to your people.
That's where when you start onboarding people, you need to be in constant communication with those individuals extremely consistently, because you need to get to know them very quickly. You need to get to know who they are as an individual, what's important to them, what their goals are in life. Because if you're going to effectively lead that person to a high level, you didn't know who they are as a person. You don't know how they're going to be receptive to certain styles of leadership. And if you're not having those consistent meetings with that individual right away, right off the get as they come into your organization, you're going to miss the boat. You're not going to hear them when they have concerns or issues potentially. And you might have a quick turnover for new employees. To piggyback off of Andrew and David's points, you need to be in constant communication with all of your team members so you can get to know who you're leading.
That's very true. Imagine, just think back on the number of key players you have within your organization. At some point, they probably worked somewhere else and they left for a reason. And maybe they weren't reaching their full potential at that other facility they were working at. And I would imagine that the majority of that is because they didn't have a leader that they could connect with and they wanted to perform for. It's the best way to say so. And the old adage that people don't leave companies, they leave leaders, has played out so many times throughout history. I doubt it's even quantifiable. So that level of strong leadership impact, from a sticking power standpoint, can't be overemphasized. And then from a performance standpoint, one of the great books that we love to reference is Extreme Ownership. And there's a wonderful story in there where they talk about switching the boat team captains, essentially. Long story short, there's, 6 boat teams that have out there, for example. One was consistently first place, one was consistently last place. And throughout the exercise, they switched the leaders of the boat team. Once that switch was made, the last place boat team in a very short amount of time became the first place boat team. And the first place boat team very quickly became the last place, all because of the strength of the leader. Now he was able to enact change and allow that group of people to achieve something that by themselves they wouldn't be able to do.
Let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. NapaTrax was built from the ground up to make your business more profitable and efficient. We provide an extensive set of tools to increase and track profitability in real time. NapaTrax offers the industry's best post-sale support, hands down, and we train your people on site. Yep, on site. And we offer remote refresher training 10 times a week, and customer support is open 6 days a week. Give us a call, visit the website, or join our Facebook community today to learn more. We'll prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. NapaTrax is always customized and tailored for you, whether you're a one-man shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at NapaTrax, that's NapaTracs.com. Hey, Carm here, suggesting you discover a smarter way to train your entire automotive team. Experience powerful, bite-sized training sessions accessible from any device in just 5 minutes daily. It's perfect for technicians, advisors, and managers alike. Today's class prepares your shop for sustained success by reinforcing crucial knowledge. Plus, add a competitive edge with our leaderboard to make learning fun and rewarding for everyone. For effective training that delivers, turn to todaysclass.com. Auto shop owners, imagine investing in a change that transforms your business and multiplies your net profit. Yeah, you heard right. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching isn't just another cookie-cutter coaching company. With us, it's about real results. On average, our clients see a staggering 9 times return on their investment in net profit. Now, that's just not growth. That's a revolution in how your shop operates and thrives. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching doesn't just guide you to the next level. They help launch you there. They turn potential into profitability through expert coaching in operations, financial management, customer engagement, and productivity. Dare to dream bigger at Autoshopcoaching.com. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching, where your success is our greatest return.
One thing, Andrew, as we're kind of segueing into the different styles, and as we alluded to, they're all interchangeable at different moments, and there's more leadership styles than what we're even touching on. But one of the things I'm thinking about in the builder is in the Marine Corps, when you go into boot camp, they tear you down to build you back up. And finding that balance of helping somebody build and reach their ultimate potential without tearing them down is something that we have to continue to always look at. And when I'm talking about building, I'm talking about speaking greatness into them. A lot of times people don't understand what they're truly capable of or what we see from them. They have a vision or self-image of what they see of themselves. And it's awesome when you watch somebody who doesn't see themselves achieving a level of greatness, and then you continue to spend time with them and you help build that confidence and you help build that momentum, and all of a sudden you watch them blossom, and they also acknowledge that they are blossoming and that they're learning and that they're developing. And one of the things I do like to talk about in my organization is build your ark before the flood comes. So as you're building your team and your process, understand that the business is only going to get busier. It's only going to get harder. You're only going to add more locations or more customers or whatever the case may be. Make sure that when you're building your leaders, you're also having them have the foresight of what's coming next, because you cannot be ready to grow your business if you can't take on what's coming on in the whitewater today. You got to have that boat ready so that when the whitewater comes, you're going right with it.
Yeah, I know you're an integrator because I know you. But what you're describing in this more of this building phase, some of what you brought up sounded like more visionary, tactics of having a vision of where you're going and being able to do the strategic planning aspect, which would be more of an integrator role. So how do you balance that duality? And that's selfishly, that's more for me, because I think that's a great point, and I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Well, it's a very broad topic. In our organization, for example, Doug and Rick live out of state. I have a leadership team meeting every week where we're talking about what's coming on the horizon. So while my job is to be a world-class integrator, I also had to wear that visionary cap. And so being able to have that balance where it's not natural for me to be a visionary, because I don't sit there and ponder on the next moves. I'm very intuitive. I push buttons, I check boxes. So having that discipline to sit down and say, what is coming in the next acquisition? What is coming in how we're handling our clients? For example, we're doing a new AI generated where we're doing inbound call handling. Being able to vet that, understand that that's coming on the horizon, and also being able to implement that building consensus with the area managers so that we're all 100% aligned as we roll it out to the team. That all has to happen while I'm checking the 90 boxes. So being very disciplined to the process, reading 20 minutes in the morning, just setting that timer, 20 minutes, driving in the car, listening to Audible, just constantly getting information and flow, getting yourself out of your comfort zone in regards to your education, whether in mine and John's case, where we went to Stanford Lead and benchmarked against some of the best in the world in regards to our leadership styles. You just constantly had to be comfortable getting out of your comfort zone and pushing the envelope, because that's what the best looks like.
One of the things when I think about leaders, one of the overarching connecting pieces, I guess, would be the growth mindset. Somebody with a fixed mindset is really going to struggle in a leadership setting because they know what they know and they don't have that desire to kind of push past that. At a certain point, that puts a hard ceiling on you. And the growth mindset is, I think sums up very closely what you're describing there, of being willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to stretch yourself. At the end of the day, if you're not constantly being presented with new information, novel ways of doing things, and then, taking that a step further and also practicing and adding to your repertoire, then you're never going to reach your full potential as a leader. And by proxy, those under your lead will also not have the blessing of having somebody who's always striving, if that makes sense.
The one thing is, sometimes as leaders, we become broken records. And if you don't have any new data or information coming in, your message will wear thin. If you look at the NFL, for example, head coaches, there's a saying that they don't typically last past 10 years because their message becomes stale. So as a leader, if you're not finding new ways to connect with your team, ultimately you're not going to win. Our job is to constantly be seeking that knowledge base. We've talked about before, top CEOs in the country are reading 52 to 58 books a year. That type of information doesn't happen organically. You have to be out there searching it. The more you search it, the more effective you'll be.
To piggyback off of that, the more time you spend educating yourself, the more time you're going to have to bring that new information to your teams. And to your point, David, to not get stale. We spend time with our teams, going back to the leadership aspects of it, because, David, you talked about your day and how disciplined you are in terms of the time that you have in a given day. And we're all in roles like that where we have to be extremely disciplined with the time that we have, because there's only so many minutes in a day. So when we are leading our teams, we have to do it with high impact. And we need to utilize tool sets that we're learning consistently from things like reading or going to peer groups or listening to podcasts. And you're gleaning information from everywhere possible. We have a director of training in our organization, and he'll go to the same classes multiple times because he says, even if I pull 2 new things from that class, because the last time I did it, I didn't understand it, but now I do, that class is worth it for me to duplicate. So you're looking for information anywhere you can, because any edge that you can get in your opportunity to lead is something that you can glean and bring back to your teams. And you have a group of people, if you have an organization like ours, which I know both of you do, you have a group of individuals that are leading your storefronts that are wired just like you, that want to take it to the next step. They want to understand things that most owners that we encountered in the past are doing as well. So you're giving them an opportunity to lead and organize as if it was their own. So they're constantly pushing the envelope and taking that next step. But if you're not doing it as their leader, they're just going to become stagnant, and you may lose high caliber individuals in your organization because you're not pushing the envelope yourself.
Yeah, what's the saying that we're all very familiar with, that eagles want to fly with eagles? And if you have people in your organization that are not, they don't embody that, they're not A players, I guess would be the best way to put it, then your A players are going to get frustrated, and they're going to be looking for somewhere where they're surrounded with their peers, not from a position standpoint, but from a desire and an overall, goal standpoint. They want people striving for the same level of success that they are, not somebody that's just there to, ride the clock, is the best way to put it. I think one of the, the very common blind spots that we have within leadership are, it's really just to put it down with what Carm kind of wrapped up earlier, is that communication side and how those conversations are had. We've gone through a couple, quelling of the herd, I guess you could say, within American Pride, where we had people that we knowingly knew were not A players. And because of that, we weren't hitting our full potential. And being able to navigate those times and kind of rebalance the team. The old adage that the people that got you here aren't going to be the ones that get you there. As much as I try to fight it, because I'm an incredibly loyal guy, has played out in our small organization, to this point. And being able to do that while not freaking out your A players that, things are happening, people are moving, new people are coming in, without a hyper focus on communication would have been incredibly unsuccessful. So knowing not only how to communicate, but who to communicate to, what meeting before the meeting has to happen, what debrief after the meeting has to happen. How do we stop the water cooler talk and don't let, negative conversations happen, I guess, in a way that just freaks out the people that you really want to be hyper focused on retaining becomes vitally important.
I have a question based around that specifically for David, because Andrew and I are very similar situation in terms of locations. But David, as you hit that double digit echelon with locations, how do you keep your communication centralized with a much bigger audience at this point and a lot more avenues for it to go through? Can you speak into how do you maintain that effectively as your organization continues to grow? Because we're all going through that.
It's a great question. And trust me, it's something that we work on constantly. So staying in each other's lanes, that's the first premise I would tell you is, as you grow your organization, you need to make sure that whatever job title, whoever has that responsibility is the person being the messenger. Doing a little dated reference, if you ever seen the movie Office Space, where the guy's getting talked about the TPS reports multiple times, I think about that constantly because my area managers don't need me going into the stores reiterating the message that they've already done. My team doesn't need that. So making sure that there's one clear messenger to get that message out. And so when we are having the leadership meetings, when I am talking, I talk to the area managers every day, whether it's for 2 minutes, whether it's for 15 minutes, just keeping a pulse on it, making sure that we're not missing in regards to our communication. Emails, what is the structure to it? Who's sending it out? Who's copied on it? Making sure that everyone has a pulse on what's happening at all time. And when we do get out of our lanes, correct it very quickly. One of the culture that we have created is in our leadership team, everyone speaks very freely. And we do talk about the issues. The one thing I do want to segue on that discussion is for leaders, you do have to be open to that feedback. When we're talking about blind spots, when we're talking about criticisms, whether it's constructive or otherwise, I don't see enough leaders holding themselves accountable to actually want to know how is what I'm doing impacting the people that I'm trying to lead. And what's interesting, I have a personal coach, Andrew and I share a coach, and he asked both of us to go out there and say to our people, to our peers, to our bosses, hey, what's one thing that I'm doing very well that I should continue to do? Or what am I doing well? And then the second question is, what am I doing now that I need to stop immediately? And then what am I doing that you'd like to see me do more of? What I think is funny is when you get to the second conversation, there's a lot of things out there that we're doing that we're completely not aware of that's causing friction within our message. So for example, and I'll just be a little bit personal, is I wanted to have our operations team over to our house on a quarterly basis. Well, I didn't know that became a pain point for one of my team leaders. It was a pain point more so because of looking at what I have in the house by comparison to what the impact was on building the camaraderie. So there's a lot of issues to dive into from that aspect. But do I want to create a pain point with one of my team leads on something that's intended to be fantastic? It ends up being a negative every time they lead. So we ended up switching it immediately to going to a restaurant every quarter. And so then I get the feedback from the team. Yep, love going to the restaurant. Can we do dinner versus lunch? So to answer your question, John, it's just constantly asking and soliciting what's happening, how are we feeling, what's the pulse, what's the morale for the team, what am I doing right now that I need to stop doing, and being okay with the fact that I'm going to have to adjust my approach because there are no bad students, there's only bad teachers. I do believe both have to meet in the middle, but if I'm the one creating the friction, I got to resolve that.
So there's a very key point to, kind of what you had said there about being able to receive that feedback. And I think this is one of the critical, blind spots of leadership is surrounding yourselves with people that might not be the best compliments to you. When I've seen this work out in the most negative way, it's when somebody surrounds themselves with people that are quote unquote yes men. They're just going to edify whatever they say, oh yeah, it's a great idea, let's go do it, type thing, but not having the ability to have those contentious conversations that you're talking about, speaking freely, truly sharing their opinion in a way that promotes the greater good. Worst case scenario, they're heard, their feedback isn't acted upon, but there's no doubt that it was considered. If you have somebody that's just going to allow you to blindly do whatever you want, or a team of people in that way, you're not going to have the most refined outcome. You're not going to be able to get that feedback that you're referencing here, and it's going to cause a much more diluted finished product.
Regardless of the size of your organization, regardless of how many people you're leading, you have to be okay and build your self-esteem up enough to know that, number one, it's not personal, and number two, for the growth of your business, you have to be willing to take the positive with the negative. And if you're all about feeding your ego and what's the positive and I'm exceptional, then you're going to lose people in your organization. You're going to cause your growth to be stunted. Your organization will only grow as fast as you are capable of leading that organization.
I got to stop for a moment and ask, I think, a really tough question. And the tough question is about the home thing, David, that you discussed. There are an awful lot of shop owners that invite the team maybe once or twice a year out to the cabin or to the house for a barbecue. And you got to feel that this wasn't acceptable to at least one individual because of a comparative thing. Look at, we're working so hard. Look at all that he has. Now, you may have a working wife. There could be a lot of reasons why you have what you have. But on the surface, it has a particular view. My question is this healthy for the industry? Or should we, as leaders and owners, be more cautious of doing this?
Intent versus impact. So you got to know your team. I'm working with different organizations right now that have all different philosophies. And what's interesting is you'd like to think that the morale and that the team will rally around what is the cause. But then human nature also comes in as well. My bosses have been very protective of inviting people over to their houses, but they also come from a corporate background and things along those lines. And I can go over their house. I could stay the night over there. We can be there, but I've known them for 18 years. So, Carm, I don't know that I have a yes or no answer, but it really depends on the level of the relationship. The one thing I can tell you finitely do not do is have people that are not your direct reports coming over, meaning don't supersede the chain of command without their boss being there. That is one of the very, very difficult balances, especially as if you were a single store operator, or if you've hired people that you become close to over the years and now they don't work with you because there's different layers in between you. You got to make sure that you are not superseding that business relationship at any time. That's the one thing I could finitely tell you.
Yeah, I think it really also, on the intent versus impact as well, people with varying levels of successes live very different lives. I know Warren Buffett, I think, is famously still lives in the house that, he had back when he first started, doing the company that he has now. For some reason, it's escaping me. But I don't think if anybody within that organization came to his house, they would feel slighted because he lives well below his means. We also have people that love to have toys. And, this is the feedback that we've had to provide. My father, for anyone who's not aware, I guess, he's our primary owner, is my dad loves to have fancy cars because when he was growing up, he always looked at, certain cars and man, I can't wait to have one of those. And he's a car guy. There's going to be a selection bias here. And the majority of people listening to this, probably car guys, is something that they can relate to. And if he drives one of his prize cars to the shops, that was a wedge in our organization where you have certain technicians who might be the same way. They're car guys, but they can't afford something that's quite at the same level. We also have a nonprofit arm to our company where we fix, people's cars it's kind of evolved over the years, but it started while we open up on an off day and we would do repairs for single parents and military families free of charge. We had a couple of situations where people were coming in for free repairs that drove vehicles that were significantly nicer than those who were volunteering their time to help them, have them, maintained at a high level. That was a point of friction as well with our teams. There's unintended consequences in a lot of cases, but something we should all be very conscious of.
There are stories behind the stories.
Layers.
Yes, exactly right. And hey, your dad worked hard to get where he is. The person who needs that car repair maybe was gifted a nice car that needs work now, doesn't have the income to manage it today. We always sometimes judge books by their covers. I love the intent versus the impact. It's incredible to think if you're having people over to show them your toys, not the right reason, right?
An opinion can't be made if the platform is neutral.
Wow, that's perfect.
Words of wisdom.
Good stuff, guys.
We're talking about how you're connecting, growing the organization. One of the things is making sure you're giving tremendous credibility to your leadership team. I cannot speak to that enough. Whenever you're out there publicly, make sure that you're praising up the people that you have leading your organization. So whether it's a single store operator with a service manager or director running the location, whether it's area managers, give those guys the credibility. Give them the professional credibility. Give them the kudos publicly. Make sure that you've empowered them and that the team knows that you have 1,000% confidence in who they are, because they are a direct reflection of you. And understand that if they're not out there reflecting your values, you need to have a pulse on that. We did a 360 survey on myself and two of the area managers over a year ago, not the current area managers. And one of them rated on leadership out of all the direct reports at 3.6, when the other area manager was 4.5 and I'm at a 4.9. You know that there's a huge disparity. And so when you're doing these 360 feedbacks, I would make sure do it anonymously so that people can have a voice, but you need to have a good pulse for what's happening in your organization and what are your leaders really doing. And what we found out in that feedback was that they were out there more treating their job as a social environment than it was an actual business environment. And there was a real credibility in what they were trying, their messaging, because they didn't have credibility within the organization. So at that point, wouldn't have known that without the 360 feedback survey and making sure that your right hand, whoever that is walking the walk that you expect and that you walk personally. And if they're not, you had to help them course correct, because your credibility is very much in doubt when the person that you've anointed to lead the team is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Let me ask a quick question on anonymity. Do you send the 360 survey, the questionnaire out as an e-doc, and then they send it back and there's no name attached to it, so you really don't know how you got it? Do you use like a Google surveys style so that they can't trace it and that makes them feel more comfortable?
Great question, Carm. It does come down to trust. So I use SurveyMonkey. If I really wanted to get the answer, I could go to the IP address and figure out who said it. I've told my teams 1,000% is I will not look at who it came from. I need the information. And then you could create whatever survey you want with scoring, comments, things along those lines. And the other thing is making sure that you honor that. I've had people who have asked me, can you please tell me who said that? And I said, the rules of engagement are it's anonymous. So you will lose credibility in those surveys if you don't honor your word. So there may be other avenues to take that way. SurveyMonkey, we survey our team at least 5 times a year. And on these 360 feedback, we are getting honest feedback from it. If you can't do that, have a neutral person do a phone call that's not attached to the business. You could do it as rudimentary as that with specific questions and have that deciphered. There's multiple ways you can get to the answer, but if your people are unwilling to give it with the fact that they think that it won't be anonymous, then you have a real trust issue in your organization.
Let's cover servant leadership. I don't think we have yet.
So servant leadership, I don't want to get religious or anything like that. I'm a man of faith. I don't think there's a stronger example of leadership, especially in the servant direction, than what Jesus provided throughout the Gospels, of the stories that we've seen there. So this is something that, naturally I tend to sway more this direction, but this is one that I'd make a conscious decision to double down on and try to not only replicate, but get better at, as time goes on. And really what that comes down to is there's never something you're going to ask somebody to do that you would not be willing to do themselves. You're going to be there in whatever way or capacity that the people that you have, leadership over need you to be there. And that also, just building off of a lot of the points that we've had to this point, it requires an incredible amount of connection with your team to figure out what they need and when they need it and who needs it. You're not going to be able to be necessarily everything for everybody, but you can be what that person needs situationally.
I've got a curious note in myself, because this is just how I'm built. This was a great episode. We could go on for 4 hours, have 20 different episodes on this different levels of leadership and give some great cue points to people. But I guess what I want to know now is I'm listening, I'm bought in, and I'm so in awe of these guys and all the things that they're doing, and I need to do more of this stuff. What kind of training or classes can I go to? Can I go to some seminar on building self-awareness, emotional intelligence? Where can I go to improve me as I'm improving my company?
There's a lot of avenues out there. The one that we've had the most success with is through the peer group environment. I'm a firm believer that you are the average of the top 5 people that you spend your time with. And there's nothing that you can do to better yourself more than increase the quality of the people that you surround yourself with. Finding a team of people that's equally yoked, that's similarly driven to achieve success, whatever success means to them, is going to be something that's going to constantly fill your cup. There's a bunch of different options within this industry, plenty that you can go out there and kind of look within. But really what it comes down to is you have to be objective in that interview process and really treat it like an interview. When you're visiting one of these peer groups and you're doing your research, making sure that these are the type of people that you want to be like, and these are the kind of people that you want to influence you, because no matter what you do, they're going to have an impact on your life. And you want to make sure the impact they're having is the one that you want to see.
Yeah, find people that push you. I mean, David talked about the Stanford Lead program earlier. He did it. He pushed me to do it. David and Andrew share the same coach. We're constantly sending each other books that we've read that we think that would be good for the other peers to read as well. And it's just you're constantly pushing each other to find new ground, find new things that we can utilize in our own leadership styles. So finding that group, to Andrew's point, that pushes you, that has the same drive that you do to excel, that's the key point in that. I read a ton, just like David does, and I know Andrew does. You can find a lot of different information out there about leadership styles. I think I'm a firm believer in that fact that emotional intelligence is incredibly important to how you lead as an individual, what leadership style you use in different situations. But there's a lot of stuff out there that you can jump into. But a lot of it, to Andrew's point, comes down to finding people that push you.
He said something so important there. What leadership style you use in certain situations. To me, that's a golden nugget from this episode. David, your perspective on where we're going to go and what kind of training do we need? And we'll sum this up.
If you don't have an Audible account or something similar, I would definitely do that. First, maximize your time. You don't need to listen to the top 40 or the country music or whatever you listen to that occasionally, but get a lot of good stuff into your ears. And then whether it's Wharton School of Business, there's all sorts of stuff. Identify where you're deficient. So if you're not a great negotiator, let's identify that and start studying that. And then there's things like the Integrator Visionary Academy through Rocket Fuel. Whether you're a visionary or integrator, go through that. There's so many sources, peer groups, as these guys alluded to, coaches. There's a lot of great information out there. Just continue to push yourself to learn. That's what I would encourage anyone listening to do.
Thank you for bringing up Rocket Fuel, the whole visionary integrator thing. You're an incredible integrator, David. I'm listening to this and I'm saying, God, I'm just so much like David, but I'm the owner of the business and I can't quite seem to set the vision for our people. And because I love to work with my hands and check the boxes, like you said. And then we've got people that are listening that are really the forward thinkers, and they've got really sloppy processes and systems, and they don't have that. And so that they need an integrator, but the business isn't big enough. I guess you're going to have to learn to wear a couple of hats for a while so you can grow, and then add your integrator if you're the visionary. So this is an evolving thing as long as you're committed as an individual to learn and get better yourself. And the peer group thing is, in my mind, one of the strongest things, be it a local independent group, be it, national peer groups. People who join them changes their life, their business, their world, and their entire team. One other thing I want to summarize about, you said you have to make some very tough decisions. And I believe that mostly everyone who owns a shop, no matter what level they are, top tier, medium tier, has experienced letting a toxic employee go and how it uplifted the entire company because of that. And they forgot about that. And now they're living in that same level of chaos and they're saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? So the loyalty, the love of your people, the herd that you have doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take you to the next level. And I love that in retrospective that you have to be sure you're culling the herd as a leader. Andrew, thank you for bringing this to us. Again, about a 51-minute podcast. We covered a lot. I'm glad you hung in there and right to the very end to help yourself groom and grow as a leader. You can't take a pill to make this happen. You just can't. You have to work at it, like all of you have said. Andrew Marquette, thanks for bringing this to us. American Pride. Jon Klusterman, Director of Ops at West Side Service, Zeeland, Michigan. And David Asquith, Managing Director, AutoStream Car Care, Baltimore, 10 locations. Guys, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.